I think probably one of your most memorable moments, or at least the moment that you might be remembered for, at least on the season, was on episode 2/3, was your slight confrontation, shall we say, with Chanel, the lovely Chanel. Now, obviously, the
Mhm.
setup of that was that you would all work together. You, Lil, and Chanel had done the design challenge in teams, and then Chanel said, "I'm glad that Marmalade or Marm didn't get it because she only did 10% of the work, and you were not impressed."
I'll say this. I'm just glad it didn't go to Marm. If we're picking hairs, I literally think me and Lil worked so closely together and you chimed in maybe I'd say about 10% of the time.
Can you talk us a bit about how did that feel in the moment?
Okay, so I will preface this because there are still people who think me and Chanel hate each other. Chanel is one of the nicest people from this season, and I genuinely mean that. She is one of my closest sisters. I love her. I adore her. It's funny. You watch people's perceptions of Queens on Drag Race versus the reality is so funny sometimes because there's people love, and you go, she is not very nice, and then people have this thing about Chanel, and she's the loveliest. So I'll just say that to start with. Um, yeah, it was interesting because we all thought we were going to win as a three. That that's what we expected. Then Saki had to go home, and we were like, oh no. And I don't think it had helped that before we went to the runway, I told Chanel I didn't like her necklace. I didn't think it worked. And then we went for critiques. I got all positive, like clearly the best critiques of the night. And Chanel's one negative was about her necklace. And I was like, and then when we were against each other, I think Chanel, same as me, had the pressure of like, this is the challenge I've got to win. This is the challenge for me. And if I don't win, I'm not going to win the season. And so I think, and I'll say that when I didn't win the lip sync, I went, okay, I'll get to the end. I'm probably not going to win this season now because I feel like I would have won that challenge. But I think Chanel, I think she was just upset, and I think she knew she couldn't take it out on Lil, and I think it was just a bit of frustration, which in hindsight is hilarious. But I had just done really well, and I did not like being told that I had not done well.
It's interesting you mentioned about the perceptions because I've always felt like personally, I maybe I'm just messy, right? But I think you need someone who's going to be a bit of a villain, a bit of a,
Oh yeah.
ruffle some feathers. Otherwise, it's really boring
Mm.
if everyone just sings Kumbaya. And I liked that Chanel brought that. But I
Me
always
too.
wondered,
Me too.
she seemed like a nice person, but it was interesting to hear your perspective on it that you said she's one of the nicest people, and then there's other people you think are nice and they're actually not. I think that's quite an interesting
She,
dichotomy.
she's just so she's exactly how she seems on TV. She's so like doolally away with the fairies, like so like I can't even explain it. She's just hilarious. Um, but like I could see, I remember that first day we were doing the talent show. I was sat by her, and she was just, I could see she was like bricking it a little bit, and that sort of environment, it will do that to you. But that's the thing. She is cutting. She 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 can be like eviscerate you, but she's so lovely. It's such a unique balance. I've never met anyone like her. Um, but she's the best person, the loveliest person.
So when you watched, because obviously you know what happened because you filmed it, but it went, I guess, filming it and then seeing it on TV are two different
Mm.
things. One of, I think, the best bits was, first of all, when you ran off like a Disney princess crying.
And I cannot take it back. We just have to deal with it.
I just feel really upset because I feel like we got along really well.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just feel, I just need a minute. I just need a minute.
Give her a sec, give her a sec.
Like that moment was hysterical. I'm sure it maybe didn't feel like that in the moment, but it watching it was hysterical. What did you think when you saw that back?
Well, my thing in that moment wasn't that I was upset. Wasn't that's not how I felt. I felt angry, and I was about to say something that I would not be proud watching back. And my thing is always I let me step back. Nothing is resolved in like heat of the moment comments. Like that doesn't fix anything. So I was like, I on the tip of my tongue, I can't remember what it was, but I went to say something and I went, no, 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 that's not, there's a camera there, that's not what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna take myself away. And I was just really frustrated because I was like, we've just done really well. This moment right now could just be about us doing well. Like this is solving nothing. So that's how I remember it. But I watched it back being like, God, I do look like a little pathetic little thing running off crying. But I just remember being like, oh, I'm about to put a fist through this fake pink wall in a minute. Like I remember just being angry. And I just know I'm better when I've had a beat to think. So I was like, let's just do that instead. Let's do that.
And then the next day, as in when you come back into the workroom and you're all around, you confronted Chanel, which was one of the most iconic moments.
You didn't win, and I felt it was a part of your personality to come back in here and find someone to blame. Octavia, why don't you tell everyone what the animal on the Welsh flag is?
The dragon.
Exactly. And that is absolutely who I am. So I love you. I respect you. It's just, I felt so amazing, and you made me feel like shit.
What did that moment feel like? Had you planned that the night before? Like you hadn't seen Chanel and you thought, I'm going to go in tomorrow and say this?
It's interesting because Drag Race gives you a very unique opportunity when you have an argument that you get to watch back months later in a way that you never get to see how you never get to see things unfold. And so that's why when I got back to like my hotel room that night, I was like, whatever I say to her tomorrow, I will have to watch back in 6 months. And in 6 months, will I be happy with how I conducted myself if I shout at her? Probably not. And so for me, a lot of it, I was going over in my head, like the night before I shouted it all at the wall just to get that element out. And then I was like, okay, how do I actually want to say this? And then I was like, we're on TV, might as well throw in a few little fun lines, why not? So I had like a framework of what I wanted to say, but a lot of things were sort of coming to me in the moment. She did, before we went in, she came up to me and she said, I know we've got to talk about this on camera. Can we just do it, me and you, in the corner? And I said, yeah, absolutely we can. I was like, no, I'm going to get you in front of the group because you got me in front of the group. So yeah, and also that was the other thing. I needed to say it like that, otherwise I would have been distracted. I don't do well holding things. So I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this challenge if I don't just lay it out. And I've got to credit where credit's due. She straight away turned around and went, yeah, you're right, that was wrong with me. Which also takes a lot because I can't even admit I'm wrong that quickly. So yeah, like I said, Chanel O'Connor, wonderful person, love her.
I thought it was very interesting. I didn't expect her to kind of apologize so quickly because she had been presented as like the villain. And I think it showed that she wasn't really. Also interesting to hear that you mentioned about the fact that you had thought, okay, I'm going to be on camera. I need to think about how I'm going to do this. And if I'm going to be proud of what I see in months' time, this is all on. Because I think a lot of queens don't talk about the self-editing of yourself because it doesn't always have to be in a bad way. It can be in a good way.
Exactly.
Because I think, I mean, obviously for drama, people probably would have wanted to see your raw reaction because it would have been more kind of like dramatic and stuff. But I guess for you and your life and your longevity and your career and your friendship with Chanel, it is probably a good thing that you sort of thought about it.
Well, this is also quite interesting because a lot of people, like, I think I handled it in a way that you don't typically get to see on Drag Race. And I think a lot of people found that to be really interesting because also at that point I had been quite quiet, and I think maybe that might have been why Chanel popped off at me because I'd come across as someone that could be spoken to like that or whatever. So I think that also benefited me to be like, no. So I also I think it made me more interesting, and it was like the start of my like story arc. Unknowing to me, like that was the start of my like interesting character development type thing. I don't work in TV. I don't know how it works. But I think that's where I was sort of coming into myself at that point, I think, which helped overall.
It gave you a storyline, and it gave Chanel a storyline in a way as well, because Untucked often these days is not that, especially on the UK, if we're being honest, it's not that good
Yeah.
normally. It's not really proper Untucked. But that was
No.
probably one of the only really good moments on Untucked in a long time. So I thank you for your service on that.
I just remembered that was the moment I was there. I was like, I'm on Drag Race. I'm having an argument with a drag queen on Drag Race about nothing. I'm having one of those silly arguments about cross-dressing on TV. Oh my God, I'm one of those. Those. Oh my God, like 14-year-olds are going to tweet about this. Oh my God, that's what's happening here. Yeah, that's when I realized where I was.
So one thing I was going to ask about that moment though was because I remember at the time Chanel talked about this episode on her YouTube channel, and she said that apparently in that moment 6 people came for her and she burst into tears and ran off, but they just didn't show it in the episode. Do you remember that happening?